Good morning and welcome to Ask an Expert, Social Emotional Learning at Home. This morning we have Michelle Manning Fluckey, a Social Emotional Liaison Lead for Glenwood Community School District. She's been working at Glenwood High School for a year. She received her undergraduate degree in psychology and communications from Nebraska Wesleyan University, and then she attended University of Nebraska at Omaha for her master's in social work. She's a licensed master of social work in the state of Iowa. She's somewhat new to the educational system, and in her previous work to Glenwood, she provided individualized therapy in Council Bluffs. She's worked in hospice and family preservation services in the Omaha and Lincoln area. She's worked with all age levels, but primarily have worked with children and their parents. Originally from the Omaha area and got married last spring, and she has two cats, Dusk and Dawn. Welcome, Michelle, and thank you so much for sharing your expertise with Ask this morning.
Awesome, thank you so much. First, I kind of wanted just to start off with talking about what is social emotional learning. So social emotional learning is really that ability to establish the process through which children and adults both understand and manage their own emotions, set and achieve goals, feel and show empathy for other people, maintain and create those positive relationships in their life, and make responsible, healthy decisions. A leader in social emotional learning in the US is CASEL, the organization CASEL. CASEL stands for Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. They've been really, at least in Glenwood Community School District, where we've pulled a lot of our research that they've compiled or tools that they've offered, and then to build a framework for how we're going to bring SEL into our classrooms and into our schools and into ultimately our community. Hopefully, it's a long action plan. So we're hoping to get there. We are in year 2 of our action plan for bringing social emotional learning to the district. Our district has been blessed with being able to hire a social emotional learning liaison for each building. I am in the high school building, and then we also have one in the middle school building, and then one in each of our elementary school buildings. So we've been really blessed and lucky to be able to have someone in each building being able to do this work. Social emotional learning is really built on 5 different competencies, and all this again comes from CASEL and their framework. There's self-awareness, so this is the idea where we're able to accurately identify our own emotions, our thoughts, and our values, and how they will influence our behaviors. And also the ability to accurately be able to identify also our strengths and our limitations, right? There's a lot of kids and a lot of adults too that can say, these are what my strengths are, these are what my weaknesses are, but is that accurate? As well as just having a good sense of confidence and a growth mindset and some optimistic thinking. I do a lot of work with that in the high school, but also the other big piece of what I do in the high school is self-management. And so that's taking all this self-awareness stuff, your emotions, your values, how they influence your behavior, and then being able to control that, right? So when a student is upset, when they're really angry, sometimes they have the reaction, maybe they storm out of the room. That's not helpful for being in school, right? That's not helpful for closing your laptop when you get upset when you're learning at home. And so how can you use coping skills in order to have a better, a more responsible reaction to those emotions? So that's a big piece of self-management. And it's also about motivating yourself and setting goals and achieving those goals. And then that brings us to social awareness, which is really just the ability to empathize with other people, take on their perspective, appreciate diversity and people from different backgrounds, and understanding social and ethical norms and what's an appropriate conversation to have with a teacher, right? Is that the same kind of conversation you would have with a friend? And then boundaries as well. That brings us to relationship skills. And so that's that communication piece. So learning how to have effective communication, maintaining and establishing healthy relationships, and as well as resisting peer pressure and cooperating with other people. That brings us to responsible decision making, our last competency. And that's just making constructive choices about your own person and what are your own personal boundaries. And is this ethical? Is this safe? And being able to evaluate those decisions that you're making for yourself and make those choices for you. And then you see the rings around the 5 different competencies. So first, especially in our action plan, we're bringing SEL into each of the buildings and trying to push into the classrooms and working with students and doing small groups. But eventually, we just want SEL to be a part of our curriculum and instructions for all teachers in all classrooms, pre-K through 12. And then bringing it to our school-wide practices and policies. So very, trauma-informed policies as far as like our discipline and our attendance, as well as eventually bringing it to our families and communities partnerships within our community. So if you're in Glenwood and someone talks about social emotional learning, they'll know what you're talking about. We have an organization that we call Ramley Matters that is now run by all the SELs in each of the buildings. And this is an opportunity where once a month we used to bring, it looks different now because it has to be virtual, but in the past we bring a free meal to our families and they're invited to come in, we eat, we build relationships. This is a positive place where especially at-risk families can come to the school and speak with teachers in a positive way. And then we usually do some sort of activity that just fosters family communication, collaboration, and having a good time together, whether that be from a game night to bingo or family movie night. So just something fun to promote some of these SEL's ideas and skills. There's a lot of really awesome impacts for SELs in schools and like taking an intentional, purposeful way to teach them, being purposeful and intentional about it when you teach them. So it leads to better academic outcomes and improved behaviors. Castle was able to find that students' academic performance increased by 11 percentile points compared to students that didn't participate in SEL programs. And it also significantly improved classroom behaviors and the ability for students to manage their stress and depression, as well as having just better attitudes about themselves and school in general. It also has a lot of long-term and global impacts. The research has shown that for up to 18 years later, students will succeed in their academics, they will have less conduct problems and emotional distress and drug use. When you're talking to people and trying to get buy-in, sometimes you got to talk about the money. And so there's 11-to-1 return on investment. So students and children that are receiving SEL as part of their curriculum in school, once they graduate and they're out in the world, on average, those students who maybe were needing to receive more benefits, were maybe being in detention centers, they're not having some of those issues, so they're not using some of those resources. So it saves us in the world money, right? And it also can help reduce poverty and improve economic mobility. So it provides people with the ability to have the skills to move them from one place in their life to the next. And like I had stated earlier, it just improves your life outcomes. There's a significant association between SEL skills and the outcomes for adults later in life, with decreased likelihood of being on the wait list for public housing, receiving public assistance, having any involvement with police before adulthood, and spending time in the detention facility. And so that's kind of SEL and what SEL is and how it can be beneficial for us. And so today I just wanted to very briefly touch on a few SEL things that maybe you can do at home to help support you as a family. And one of the big things is to build a routine. And I know that can be easier said than done, especially when you've got more than one child. They're at different ages, so they need different things for their ages. But the consistency of a routine and for kids knowing what's going to be coming next, even if it's just within one day, is going to give them such a sense of safety and control that's kind of been pulled out from underneath them. In March, one day we just didn't go back to school, and some of those kids haven't gone back to school yet. And so they haven't been able to see their friends or see their teachers or really end their school year. There was no end to this school year. If we can create even some sort of semblance of a routine, that's going to give them the stability they need to continue learning and moving on throughout their education. And make it fun. It can be something that you create with your child. The more your child has a say in what the routine is going to be, the more likely they'll have ownership over it and they'll follow through with it. And so, get some art supplies, make a big poster, put it up in your house. If you're more of a tech person, you've got older kids, maybe it's an image that you create, like a PDF that, they have on their phone. It's a screensaver on the computer when they log in so that they're able to see it. And so that's just one little thing. And SEL is often just the little things that you can do just to help support all around learning and being a healthy person. There's tons of tools out there. If you were just to Google SEL activities, you would get just a million things. And they're all, for the most part, pretty great. But one tool that I wanted to give to parents that I think is pretty great and I've used before is Aperture Education. Originally, they derived from two different nonprofits promoting child resiliency and then the other promoting opportunities and tools for teachers to use SEL in schools. And they became one, Aperture, and just put all of that in one bucket. Since COVID has been a thing and parents are finding themselves often the teacher and they're at home, how are students still getting SEL? So they developed this website, which I'll have at resources at the end of this PowerPoint, that has been aligned with CASEL. So it has the 5 competencies plus a couple extra things. And you can go ahead and you can click on them and it pulls up different activities. And what the great thing is they're super easy. They're really quick. Often they're just things to just incorporate in your day. They're tools to be used for things that we're struggling with right now. And they're meant for all ages. They have it sectioned out for elementary students, middle school students, and then high school students. But the crazy thing is afterwards, they also have a little tidbit for preschool kids and then infants and toddlers. And then usually at the end, they're like, this is good for adults too, and it can help you. And so everyone can benefit from these. Everyone gets a little piece of these. First one I wanted to do with everyone is called Even If. It falls under the self-management portion of social emotional learning. And because of COVID, because of the world we're living in, there's a lot of things we're not able to do. It's easy for adults even, but often for our children. Like this year, I'm not able to have my birthday party. This year, I'm not able to go to school. High school students, they missed graduation, they missed prom. And so this even if strategy is meant to still recognize the negatives, right? These are really negative things. They're difficult things to deal with, but also to try to view the positives in some of these situations. So we don't want to discount the negatives. We don't want toxic positivity in our lives, but we can't just focus on the negatives. We need to have that growth mindset that yes, this sucks, but there's still some positive things that can come from it. Sorry, I'm looking at the wrong one. The even if is actually the optimistic thinking. So everything's the same except for under self-management, it's optimistic thinking, which is really a piece of self-management anyway. So for our elementary students, especially because they've been social distance and they've been living with a lot of disappointment right now, a lot of loss, the examples that they give is that even if they can't have their friends over for their birthday party, they can still have a virtual birthday party. And maybe grandparents that live far away or friends that have moved away will be able to attend. Even if I can't have a sleepover with my friends tonight, I can do board game night with my parents. And for little kids, that's still fun. Same thing for high school students. Like even if I wasn't able to attend prom this week, like ultimately I still graduate and I have college to look forward to. So that's that idea of trying to create some optimistic thinking. And then this is the self-management piece. It's called Psych Yourself Up. The idea is that we have lost a lot of control around what's going on in our lives, and we're experiencing a lot of compassion fatigue. Everyone is, from adults to little kids. And so sometimes getting on the computer every day to do school for hours is just, it's exhausting and we get tired of it and it's difficult to do. So this is something to psych yourself up, to get ready to do it. For little kids, pretend that you're an animal. And so throughout the day, you and your child you pretend you're an elephant. So you get up and you stomp around, you make elephant noises. You're right, a kangaroo, you bounce around the house, and do this once every hour, once every other hour to help psych yourself up, keep motivating you to keep working throughout the day. For middle school students, they talk about music and how music can be so important and inspiring for students to psych themselves up. So sit down with your kids, have them make a playlist. And so when they're starting to feel unmotivated to do work or they start complaining, get the playlist out, have a little dance party, psych yourself up. And then in that same hand, you could do the opposite, right? Sometimes our kids get a little crazy, they start bouncing off the wall. Develop a really calming playlist that you can play for kids to help take themselves down a little bit and focus. And then for high school students, they talk about imagery. High school students have a little bit more brain developed. Have them imagine a time in their past when they've been successful, they've achieved a goal. How did that feel for them? What did it look like? They can make something where it's visual. They can look at it like a piece of paper, a quote, something they can write down. If you notice they're really struggling, you can remind them to think about that time to psych themselves up. So those are just a couple different things that you're able to do. They have a whole bunch of them on that website, and they're really great. These are some of the resources that I use today. There's the website for Castle, as well as Aperture Education, just their general websites. And then under that, the specific website for all of the different lessons that are on there. And then underneath that, the 2 specific websites for the lessons that I use today. I'd love to answer any questions that you guys had.
Thank you, Michelle. Great information. And so we do have a couple of questions. Can districts and families access tools and resources through the Castle online?
The Castle online website is a lot to dig through. And if you're really great at going to a website and digging through some of those tools to find activities, that would be great. But really what More Castle's there for is they have a bunch of different videos that explain what social emotional learning is. It's a great tool to learn about social emotional learning, not as much for finding different activities to do.
Okay, great information. Alicia shares, loves the idea of Ramley Matters. How might someone, a parent or educator, get something similar started in their own community?
So actually, Ramley Matters was started by 2 teachers in our district who have since left, and it was unaffiliated with the school. They had asked the school, can we use our buildings? We're going to be reaching out to these families. And so really they just started it themselves, and Facebook was a pretty big catalyst for that. And then partnering with different organizations. They partnered with Please Pass the Love a little bit and asked them for a lot of help in getting up off their feet. They reached out to different community for some financial help. They asked for some marketing help. T-shirts are always really great. Everyone wants a t-shirt. And just pushing it out through newsletters in their schools. And so if it's someone that works in the school, I think that would probably work the best. But if you're a family member wanting to do this, I would say partner with someone that's working in the school, because then you'll have the access that you need to promote.
All right, well, thank you again for sharing your expertise with Ask an Expert for Ask Resource Center. Thank you, Michelle.
Thank you.